This one little function, start call log, is where the magic happens. All I need to do is take the Playwright uh, page object, call the route function, and capture all of the uh, web traffic that is going out from my applications.
All right. Happy Thursday, everybody. We're in the architect space. Ed Thompson is going to teach us some cool stuff.
So I'm
Take
a
it away,
late
Ed.
convert to Playwright. I'll be honest with you. I've been doing a lot of analysis of testing tools over the last several months. I own my own software business, but I'm a one-man, one-trick pony. And picking out the right testing tool is important because I need those tests to last me for years to come. So I came late to Playwright, but I've made the switch. Who am I? I've been a software developer for over 30 years. I have been doing Angular development since 2014. I live in North Carolina in the US. I'm happily married for, actually, it's going on 36 years now. I have 2 sons, 2 grandsons, a granddaughter, grandson on the way, a dog, and 2 cats. But let's talk about Angular testing. So I have this application, and it's a commercial application. It's a commercial desktop application. So what I've done is I built an Angular application that runs in Electron. Electron is a framework that allows you to run web applications in a desktop environment and gives you access to backend functionality like reading files, writing files, reading from a database, etc. The way that technology works is that you have a front end that's normal front end that runs in a JavaScript engine, and it communicates to a back end through asynchronous socket messages. So send a message, take some action, get a response. Very simple. Problem that I run into is that this kind of application is very difficult to test. And it's also very slow to test. There are some database interactions, for instance, that I want to make sure occur. There's other communications with the backend that I want to make sure happen. So it's also very difficult to develop in the Electron environment, for me at least, because you constantly have to restart the application, and it takes a little while. And running a bunch of tests is just a PIA. So my solution was to write a second backend that's just basically turns my application into a web application. I have an Express backend that has the exact same interface as the Electron backend, except it's sending HTTP messages instead of socket messages. It runs on Node.js. It's very easy to start up the backend, and then when I start up the front end, it will communicate through these. I call them REST calls, but actually I'm not following the REST protocol. So that was my solution to speeding up my development time. And then once the application is ready to go, I'll make sure that the Electron backend, going back, that the Electron backend has exactly the same interface as the interface evolves, and I can switch back and forth whether I want this to be a web application. So that's my goal. So what is it that I want to test? Well, I want to do standard end-to-end testing, but when I say end-to-end testing, what I really mean is, am I making the correct REST call? I test the backend piece separately, and I trust that if you make a REST call in a certain way, that certain things will happen. So that part I'm solid on and very comfortable with. But I need to make sure that as the user interacts with the application, that all the correct REST calls are being made, because that's going to be the key to making this application. Now, is this true end-to-end testing? If you're a purist, it's not, but it's the kind of testing that I need for my application. So how do I make sure that I'm making all the correct REST calls when something like this happens? And the answer to that, as I started using Playwright, was the Playwright route method. So the route method of Playwright provides APIs that allow you to monitor and modify your browser traffic. So I could, for instance, this is how I might build out a mock, for instance, to return mock data, etc. That's not how I'm using it, however. Here, in this particular use case, what I'm actually doing is just using it as a pass-through, capturing information about the traffic, and then in my test cases, verifying that the traffic I expected to happen actually. All right, so let's enough with slides. Let's get into the code.
Okay.
All right, so this is this is actually version 3 of the application. It's actually written in Angular 1 and running in Electron. Um, it's just a template screen, a screen where my users can enter in data. I'm rewriting it using Angular, whatever the latest version is, and you can see here cleaner version of it. Now, the test case I want to run here is that when a user enters data in the source title, okay, test title, and it blurs, a lot of things happen. Number one, a message gets sent to populate a database table. Number two, this field gets populated with a temporary title for citation. Number three, because the database gets updated, a list over here receives a signal that there's a new list, and it populates that list in the source filter. So there's a lot going on here from the one action. But the thing I really want to zero in on is the fact that I need to know that the database transaction occurs. So for this test specification, I start by calling a function in my page object called start call log. And then at the end of the test, I'm going to query that all the calls to my REST endpoints that I expect to occur. So for instance, in this test case here, I expect a DB update call to be made for the source record. I expect a DB get all call to be made for the source table, etc. So these are the things I want to verify. Now, how do I do that? Well, let's take a look at start call log. This one little function, start call log, is where the magic happens. All I need to do is take the Playwright um, page object, call the route function, and capture all of the uh, web traffic that is going out from my applications. Here you see I use a regular expression that just dot star that captures everything. I get the route and I get the request. And then I capture the request URL, the request method, and the data that's being passed in the body of the request. And I push it into a list of calls that are being made. And then I continue the route. And this is what makes it pass through. So I'm not manipulating the request. I'm not manipulating the response. I'm simply capturing the request, putting it into an array for use later. And then once the test is done, I have this calls to function with the name of the method that I expect to have been called and the table against which that method was called. And I count up how many times within the array that call is made for that table. And I pass back the result. And then if we go back to the test specification, you see here, I expect the calls to DB update for the source table to equal 1. Very, very simple. Now, I could have gotten more complicated and changed the two equals to something more language specific, but I'm not here to create new test functions. I'm here to create an application. So I'm trying to keep it simple. So when I run this, see, it went very quickly, and my test passed. What does my test pass means? I think I can actually see it. Yeah, you can see here that the list table got created, or the test title entry got created. So let me show you that it actually is testing the right thing by expecting two calls to have been made. And we'll rerun that test. And you see here that the test fails now. I expected two calls to have been made, only one call was made. So really that's what I wanted to show here. And shout out to Bonnie who got me push me to try out Playwright. Um, but this really simplifies my whole testing scenario. So I can test any and all backend calls that are being made. And I didn't show it here, but I could actually query the data that was sent to those backend calls. Right now, I'm just querying that what the message type was being sent against which table. But I can expand this calls to say, here's the record I sent, and are these fields in the record? I haven't done that yet, but that would um, extensively be the next step. So, Maya, that was it. It was real easy once I found the Playwright route call, and I'm real happy with both the performance and the result.